Are we ready, Amy?
Yes, you can get started. It looks like all of the council members are here. Matt, Joe, Laura, Rick, Michelle.
Okay. All right, it is 6:30 on Monday, December 21st. It's a regular meeting of the Arlington City Council. I'm Mayor Rich Nagel. I will preside. At this time, I'm really hearing a lot of feedback, so if somebody else could lead on the Pledge of Allegiance, we could say the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
I
pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
to
United States
the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. How are the rest of them doing for feedback? I can hear I can hear a lot of feedback when I talk.
I'm not hearing any feedback. How is everybody else?
Hearing a lot of feedback.
I'm hearing a lot.
Hearing a lot.
Yeah, I've been hearing some.
I don't think there's anything I could do on my phone to make a change.
We're not hearing it up here.
Amy, do you have a speaker or a microphone pointed to your speaker on your computer or anything?
I do. Maybe it's my microphone. There. How's that?
Is that any better?
Yeah, much
I
better.
think it is.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we will have roll call. Councilmember Batcher.
Here,
Councilmember Morgan.
Here.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Here.
Councilmember Omrine.
Here.
Councilmember Gilman.
Here.
All right, all members are present. Also present, City Administrator Newsom. Attorney Arneson, is he on the line?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Ross.
Good evening.
Is there anyone else that needs or that should be mentioned at this time that's present? City Administrator Newsom.
Craig.
Yep.
Craig is on.
Okay, got it. Anybody else?
Andrew, Chief Konechny is on.
Okay,
And Jamie is on,
okay,
as well as Haile.
okay. All right. With that out of the way, I will recess the regular council meeting at 6:34, and we'll open the public hearing. The hearing this evening is filing of the assessments for bad debt, delinquent utilities, and city maintenance service costs. And I will turn it over to City Administrator Newsom.
On your screens, you'll see the assessments for this year, and it's actually the same ones that we had last year. I remember sitting in the audience last year when this was handled at City Council, and I remember questions asked, why are they all the same dollar amount? And I found out why we have the same dollar amount, because these are properties that have been sitting empty. So that's why the dollar amounts are all the same on these, except it looks like they mowed the lawn more frequently at 307 West Baker. And I have not heard, they were notified by mail. I sent letters out to these entities to try to collect, and I did not hear from them.
So once those taxes, or once those charges go on their taxes for next year, basically then they go away. So these are new charges for 2020, is that right?
These are the charges for 2020, correct. So they'll go on their
Okay.
taxes, And I'm guessing if they haven't paid the property taxes in a while, this will end up for sale because they haven't paid the property taxes. And if someone buys that property, then they also have to pay off these assessments when they buy the property.
Got it. Okay.
Do we get
So
interest?
those assessments then accumulate year after year after year until
5%.
someone pays for them.
5% interest.
Okay.
I'm
All right. Is there any other questions regarding the items that are being taken care of at the hearing this evening? Hearing none, we'll close the hearing at 6:36 and reconvene the regular meeting of the City Council. At this time, we're on item 3, and I would call for additions to the agenda. Additions or changes? Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I have one addition to add under the consent agenda, the committee pay for 2020.
This would be citizen committee pay, I would guess.
Correct.
Okay. That would be item G. Is there anything else? Is there
That's
a motion
all.
to approve motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Gilman, second by Councilmember Batcher to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion is carried. We'll move on to item 4, the consent agenda. Consent agenda this evening consists of the following items. Approval of the bills. Item B, approval of the December 7th, 2020 council minutes. Item C, approval or accept resignation of Darnell Halverson from Planning and Zoning Commission, effective 12/31/2020. Item D, approve application for solid waste collection and/or dumpster permit 2021 for Renville Sibley Sanitation. Item E, approve application for solid waste collection and/or dumpster permit 2021 for Waste Management. Item F, approve application for solid waste collection and/or dumpster permit 2021 from Gaylord Sanitation. And lastly, item G, approve the pay for the citizen committee members. And this is something that's paid once a year at the end of each year.
And that is up on your screen right now, since that was added.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Was that Joe?
Yes.
Motion by Councilmember Batcher, second by Councilmember Morgan to approve the consent agenda, including the one addition, item G, as read. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Moving on to petitions, requests, communications. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to announcements.
I just wanted to share with everyone that Jamie earlier presented a plaque to Bob Luth for his 26 years of commitment and service to the Arlington area ambulance and the surrounding communities. There will be a picture in the newspaper, and there will be a photo going up on Facebook after tonight's council meeting.
Okay, just to interject, in my personal dealings with Bob, I always felt he was very professional and very pleasant to deal with in ambulance matters. So I congratulate him on his recognition of the 26 years. Okay, move on to communications.
Attached, please find a copy of the EDA minutes from November. And so that council knows what happens at the EDA meetings. This is for your information.
Any questions from the council regarding those minutes? Hearing none, we'll move on to reports. Item number 8A, November Police Department report. Chief Konieczny.
Hello, how is everybody doing tonight? Can you hear me just fine?
Hear you just fine.
Okay. November was just another quiet holiday month for us again. You can see again our 57 traffic stops, no major thefts or crimes to report at this time. So it's just been another quiet month. Again, COVID restrictions are still, I think, keeping everything quiet in town. Santa Claus himself called and just wanted to congratulate us all for as well as good as we're all being. So it's going to be a good Christmas for all of us, looks like.
All right, any questions for the chief?
This is Joe. Just wanted to share on the speedometer unit that you hang around town.
Yeah.
When it's out on the highway, I noticed that the angle right on Highway 5 there, the angle picks up like the semis behind me. So like I'm coming into town and of course I'm doing the speed limit. And big rig behind me, and all of a sudden it'll start flashing when it's supposed to be 40. So some of that data might be used. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that thing still follows the law of radar, which it just kind of shoots the radar into the area, and it'll sometimes pick up the larger object of the two. We have the same problems with squad cars. So yeah, generally I like to keep it in areas where it can just kind of get one car at a time, but then it also picks up the closest object that's there also. So sometimes it works really good, and then sometimes if you got a lot of traffic, it gets a little confused. But so yeah, there's better places to put it. I'm still trying to see where it works best in certain residential areas or highways or stuff like that. So it might make an appearance in your neighborhood. Just stay tuned.
It worked well on Freedom Drive, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite places to put it. So that was definitely worth the money.
Can you pick up some patterns? In other words, if you look at the data for a number of days or weeks when it's in the same location, do you know that maybe at 6:30 in the morning someone comes barreling in at 55, 60 miles per hour in that same location?
Yeah, it's got some really comprehensive data collection. It can give you every car, the date, the time, and the speed if you have time to look through all that. Otherwise, you can jump to some bar graphs. That's a really easy way to just get a quick snapshot of what's going on. And it can tell you by hour how many cars, pass through for that particular hour. How many of those cars were over the speed limit. So it's a fantastic way, I guess, to target, if there's certain times of the day that we want to go out and sit and watch speeds in particular areas. We got the data now to figure out where the problem areas are probably. So yeah, it's really pretty neat.
Good. Any other comments or questions for the chief? I don't hear any, so I thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you. Everybody have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Merry Christmas, Chief.
You too.
Item B, update CIT network. James Noxon.
Yeah, can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm at work at my part-time job, so I'm coming in for my cell phone in my squad car. So Amy just asked me to give a brief update on where things are at. Pretty much everything's installed. All the racks are up. The new server that's managing the payment utilities and digitizing of files and everything just got delivered this last week. that's getting all programmed up and according to Amy's requests for data management and making sure that that all gets specifically accessed by those that are only allowed to have access to it. The new network is up. We now have secured networks, and nobody from the guest network is able to access any other information. And then we also now have a terms of agreement that we have thrown on the guest network that allows us to just kind of remove some liability from anybody misusing the network on our end. We are waiting for a couple of pieces of equipment that they just recently told us were back ordered until February, and we're addressing trying to get that back in sooner. But other than that, everything's going great. Everything's working very well, and just kind of working out the bugs as it comes in.
Questions for James? Anything? All right. Thank you for your report, James.
Thank you.
All right, move on to item C, November O&M reports from People Services.
Up on the screen, you should be able to see the operation and maintenance report from People Service. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. Let me know if you have any questions. So I'll pass along to Lee Ortloff to answer. I do like the way they've been doing their report, the fact that they go over what they do during the month. Anybody have any questions on the report?
Questions, anyone? Hearing none, I'll move on to November financial report.
I am going to let Haile, I'm going to mute myself. Haile put together the expenditure report for November, and he is going to go over the expenditure report.
Hello.
Hello,
So
Haile.
for the general fund, it's close to like the 92% budget. I think there's an echo going on. But so there's not a lot of changes in the general fund. If you keep going down. Yeah, if you keep going down to the special funds, there are a few items that we're over with from our budget. One of them is the water and storm sewer, and if we go to the enterprise section, we could look at the capital equipment fund, which we spent it over the fire truck and it was allocated on. And if we go on the row 131, the 2,000 goal improvement, we paid, the council paid the debt, so we see an increase on spending of 600%. So yeah. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions on the financial report?
How does it look like following up the rest of the year then, Amy? We're gonna be under budgeted, potentially looks like here, or?
Have to unmute myself. Except for the community center fund, we're going to talk about that when we transfer money this evening. The community center fund is over budget due to COVID, so we'll have to transfer some more money in there from the general fund. But otherwise, it's looking good, Michelle. Yes.
Good job to all the heads of the departments for staying within budget or under budget. I appreciate that.
Definitely good, looking good. Any other questions regarding the financial statement? All right, hearing none, we will move on to ordinance and resolution. We have a second reading of ordinance 331. This is an ordinance dealing with the committees. And if you remember, and I hope I get through this, Amy. If I start stumbling, you may need to bail me out. But what we did last time, rather than reading through the entire chapter, we just talked about the items that were affected, and I would do that again. I'm hoping I'm looking at the same document everyone else is here. Chapter 4, committees. Under 4.02, we are scratching or redlining the ambulance department committee. Then we go down to 4.01, the council committees. We're redlining or crossing out everything except employee relations. Then if we go to 4.02, miscellaneous committees, we are taking out the ambulance department committee there also in its entirety. And we keep paging, and we come to the library committee. If you look at item C, library committee, look for that heading. And you get to item 8 under that, and employee review has changed. Amy, what is the new wording on that? I just have my copy from last meeting, but part of that has been deleted. What is the new reading under that?
So the library shall assist the city council just by making hiring recommendation to city council.
Okay.
They are not part of the reviewing of applications any longer.
And that's done on a county level?
That is done with the library board, correct? And the county. They're
Okay.
hired by the county.
Right. Okay, and then we go to Planning and Zoning Committee, Section E. If you can all find Section E under Planning and Zoning. We're striking the words commissioners shall serve without compensation. All our committees now are compensated for their efforts in attending meetings and doing their homework on that particular committee. The next paragraph, if we can keep this area in mind, when we get towards the end of the meeting, I want to come back to this and use this for a little discussion. It's in regard to the makeup of commissioners who, or individuals who can be members of the committee. So just sort of keep that in mind. It's in there yet. We're not changing it. It begins with the sentence, commissioners shall be residents of the city of Arlington. Again, I would like to bring that up for discussion in the open discussion section towards the end of the meeting. And it does have something to do with my trying to find people to serve on that committee. I think I have everything. Amy, did I miss anything?
No, you caught everything.
Okay, all right. So this is the second reading then of Ordinance 331. We will be dealing with a resolution regarding Ordinance 331 just a little further down the agenda. But at this time, does anyone have any questions regarding the changes to this ordinance? And this again is the second reading. We had the first reading at the last meeting or the first meeting of December. Are there any questions? Oh, hearing none, then we will just proceed. And again, we will be dealing with it in a resolution form a little further down the line. At this time, we will move to item 10, first reading of Ordinance 332. And I believe that I am turning this over to Ross for the reading of it word by word. Is that correct, Ross?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor, and I memorized it for the purpose of this meeting. No, it's a fairly standardized franchise agreement. It's very similar to what we already have on the books. Just some highlights. It is a 15-year agreement, and franchise agreements typically are set for long term because, of course, the entity, MediaCom in this case, doesn't want to have to worry about having to pull out their system. If let's say it's a year-by-year renewal, and so I think this proposed 15-year agreement is appropriate. They are required to place a performance bond of $50,000 and a letter of credit of $10,000 to ensure that they abide by the city rules and regulations, in particular, how their utility placement might affect our rights of way. And they are required to obey all of our procedures regarding that, prior notice and inspection, and so on. They are required to carry liability insurance of $1 million per person or $2 million per occurrence in case anyone is injured by somehow their use of the franchise. And the only situation where that might possibly come up is if, let's say, they're putting in a new line somewhere and don't properly secure it, and somebody falls into a hole or drives into a hole. It's not really a very significant liability exposure type of activity. And they have, most importantly, removed any mention of the Joint Cable Commission. And so under this agreement, all of the franchise fees will flow to the city and will remain with the city, and the city will totally control how those fees are spent. And the franchise fees are paid quarterly, which I think was the same payment pattern as in the past. And they again, at the very end, list various city entities that are provided a free hookup. And that includes the St. Paul's School, the police department, City Hall, the library, ambulance, the hospital, and the high school. And I'm not sure if they all participate in that, but at least they have the eligibility to have that service.
Speaking on that, Ross, I just got a letter
Yes.
from MediaCom from at the school saying that about that specifically, and about having it disconnected if we're not using it or something, or having it disconnected. I need to look at my letter. Maybe
okay.
look at that then for us, saying that staying within this contract here then, or abiding by this contract then, correct?
Well, if, I suppose if the school elects not to use it, then I suppose there's no purpose in MediaCom servicing the connection. I would guess maybe that's what they're getting at. But if the school does want to utilize it, it's part of this contract, and it is required that MediaCom provide it.
Okay, thank you for clarification. I'll look at that letter, and if it says something different, I'll show it to you.
Sure, I'd be happy to look at it. If anyone has any specific questions, I will try to address them. Otherwise, I would characterize this as being a very standard franchise agreement and very similar to the one that we've had in place all these years.
Ross, did our agreement with MediaCom simply reach the end of its maturity, or did Or
Well, actually,
is this
that-
agreed?
Yeah, that actually happened more than a year ago, but by special dispensation, we entered into just a one-year renewal with MediaCom because we were in a state of flux with, the Joint Cable Commission and whether we were going to opt in or out. And so we did enter into a one-year extension, which does expire at the end of this year.
Okay.
But that one-year extension was based on our previous agreement, which said that our franchise fees ultimately went to the Joint Cable Commission. And so that's why the Joint Cable Commission was still receiving our franchise fees through the end of this year. And but since that special one-year extension is now expiring, and since we did opt out of the Joint Cable Commission, now it's appropriate to have this separate franchise agreement with MediaCom.
Ross, one question on the two bonds that you mentioned. Did that number change at all based on the times, or is it the same as it was the 15 years prior? Was there an
I think it
increase?
was the same, as I recall. Well, by the way, this just gives us immediate security so that if, let's say, I suppose a scenario would be something like this, that MediaCom would dig up one of our rights of way and we would object to the quality of the work, and we would request that they come back and fix it, and then they go out of business. Well, then we can still pursue the bond. But if they're still in business, there is wording in here that says, yes, the bond is there as security, but their liability is not limited to the bond. So in a highly unlikely scenario where, let's say, they really, really screw up some right of way, or maybe they don't go that deep with their lines typically, but let's say they go real deep and sever one of our main sewer lines or something and create all kinds of damage, we're not limited to the 50,000. They are responsible for whatever the total cost of the liability is.
Okay.
What provisions are in here, Ross, as far as if situations would change 5-6 years down the road or whenever that we can get out of the contract? Can you talk about that a little?
Well, it's in kind of a gray area. Again, these types of franchise agreements are designed to be long-term. But if, for example, well, one out would be, it talks something about one of these sections here, I'm trying to find it quick, but if they are not adequately servicing the customers, we have some rights to, question their performance, and it could ultimately result in our terminating the agreement.
Okay.
So that's one example that I recall. Let's see here. I'm trying to see.
Section 10, revocation of franchise, I believe, starts that area.
Yeah, thank you. I was just about at that page. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, it talks about violating any material provision of the franchise. And again, that's pretty much the way that I think is interpreted by the courts, is if they aren't adequately servicing the customers. That would give the city grounds for arguing that they are in material violation. I suppose one scenario there would be if, let's say, they lose interest in Arlington and aren't, keeping their equipment properly maintained and do not have good customer response to problems, etc., then it's possible that we could terminate the franchise and get in somebody new. Or, you know, the scenario typically would be that if we make it hard for them to do business in Arlington, they'd, you know, probably sell out to somebody else who, you know, we would then hope would do a better job for our citizens. But that scenario is highly unlikely unless there's some, you know, additional very significant technology change, you know, that maybe makes their whole system outdated, and they decide they don't want to reinvest, you know, to upgrade. You know, that's the kind of thing that could trigger a material violation of the agreement and allow us to cancel them out.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Ross regarding this first reading of Ordinance 332?
I seen it said in there something about a public educational government access as well. So
Yes,
so
we do have the right, the continued right, to either one or two public access channels. But, you know, we did explore that question in the past, and for whatever reason, the school at that time was not interested in participating, you know, with their media department. And city staff, as I recall, indicated at the time that they, you know, didn't have the personnel to sponsor it. And so I think the idea was that, you know, we probably wouldn't effectively be able to sponsor a public access channel on our end. But if that situation changes, MediaCom does provide us with one. Now that's one thing I know we discussed in the past before deciding to decouple from the joint cable commission, that they were, after a fashion, you know, providing the public access channels. But as I recall, one thing that was kind of determinative was when they had their equipment damaged in a storm and were offline for quite a while. As I recall, the city reported having one phone call from a local citizen asking what happened to the channels. And I think we did, yeah. And I think we did some surveying, or, you know, in various ways determined that those public access channels, you know, were only very sporadically used. And so it wasn't considered, you know, an essential service, you know, to provide to our citizens. But again, this says that MediaCom provides it if we request it. It's just that we have to, you know, provide the programming on our end.
would that be in place of the cable commission? Like, would we have our own Arlington channels, or don't you know?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, Michelle.
I asked if it would be the same channels as what the cable commission has, or if it would be different channels.
Oh no, they would have to give us a different one. Yeah, because the cable commission is using that bandwidth right now, as I understand it. But in other words, we wouldn't be piggybacked on theirs. You know, MediaCom, and I don't understand the technology of this, but you know, they have ways of manipulating, you know, what feeds go to our local area. And so I guess if a MediaCom customer in Arlington, you know, if we were servicing a local access channel, my understanding is it would be available to our you know, our local viewing public. So, you know, and this is certainly a subject we can always revisit. And especially if, let's say, the school gets enthusiastic about, you know, putting on some programming. And if, you know, the city staff, you know, has the time to input it, you know, we can always get a local access channel up and running someday.
Yeah, I found that it was just interesting that it's in here, so that was good. Good that it's in
Yes.
Any other questions of Ross regarding this ordinance 332? All right, hearing none, we will move forward then. This was considered the first reading of ordinance 332, and the second reading will be, I presume, at the first meeting in January.
Correct.
Okay. All right, moving on to resolutions. We have a bunch of them tonight. Resolution 66-2020, a resolution accepting a donation and designating its use. Amy?
I was going to say, Mayor, would you like to speak to this one? Roseanne received Roseanne received a check for her election judge duties, and because she didn't participate she went through training, I believe, but did not participate in being an election judge this year. So she would like to donate that back to the city.
Right.
I'll introduce resolution 66-2020, resolution accepting a donation and designating its use. $30 from Roseanne Nagel.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Who is that, please? Who
Joe.
seconded it, please? Joe?
This was Rick.
Hi.
Oh, Rick, okay, sorry. Okay, resolution 66-20 was introduced by Councilmember Batcher, second by Councilmember Omrine, and that is a resolution accepting a donation and designating its use. Is there any more discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, we will vote by roll call. Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
With 5 votes in favor, none against, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 67-2020, a resolution approving ordinance 331. That's the one that the second reading was held earlier. An ordinance amending the city code, chapter 4, committee sections 4.01, 4.02, 4.03, and section C8 and E2.
And I would just like to say that this includes the summary publication that will run in the newspaper next week.
My feeling on this resolution is that I feel that it's going to add a lot more time to the council meetings. That's why it was put in place in the first place, is to take some of that time off of the meetings. Not that we're running to 10, 11, 12 o'clock, 3, 4, 5 hour meetings every 2 weeks. I feel if we move forward with this, it's gonna lengthen our council meetings.
I would like to introduce a resolution approving ordinance 331 and ordinance amending city code chapter 4.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is it Sharpie?
Yes.
Resolution 67-2020, introduced by Councilmember Gilman, second by Councilmember Sharpie. Is there any more discussion? If not, vote by roll call. Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilman,
Yes.
and Councilmember Batchor.
No.
With 4 votes in favor, 1 vote against, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 68-2020, a resolution approving the salary, wage, and health insurance benefit plan for 2021.
This is staying the same.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I jumped in too
No,
soon.
that's right.
This is staying the same as last year. We did go through this at a personnel committee meeting and talked about we will keep the same for insurance. It's a 60-40 split. The city pays fixed 60% and the employee pays for 40%. And the city will continue to contribute that $1,800 to the HSA accounts in 2021. I've also attached a spreadsheet showing, I'll try to bring it a little bit bigger, showing the wages for next year, where they will be in place when people receive their step increases in 2021. It's less than last time because we've taken out the assistant ambulance manager as well as the planning and zoning position. For the first time, I included the part-time staff and the contracted positions so that you see how much goes towards that. So you see the total personnel costs. We budgeted in this year's budget to include small increases for the part-time staff because we like to hold on to good staff members. I think after being here a year, I have realized how important it is to hold on to good staff.
How much did insurance go up this year, health insurance?
It was 4-some%. I don't remember the exact 4-some%. We stayed pretty good compared to a lot of other entities.
Amy, is this all encompassed? Is this, you know, the resolution talks about the healthcare, but then you've got this wage thing. Is that all part of it, or is it just the healthcare?
It's all part of it, Joe. This is considered the wage schedule, and then it encompasses the healthcare and the HSA account as well.
Would someone wish to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce resolution 68-2020, resolution approving the salary, wage, and health insurance benefit plan for 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Batchor introduced resolution 68-2020. That is a resolution approving the salary and wage and health insurance benefit plan for 2021. It was seconded by Councilmember Gilman. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
I have to go no on this one.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
With 4 votes in favor, 1 opposed, the resolution 68-2020 is passed. Resolution 69-2020, a resolution adopting the 2021 tax levy and ordering the levy to be certified with the Sibley County Auditor.
This is the same as the numbers from our public hearing that was held on December 7th. Nothing has changed. We're sitting at $959,416. Like I said, it has not changed since last time. This is a requirement that we approve it at this council meeting because it needs to be certified to the county auditor as well as sent to the state of Minnesota.
Well, it says on the resolution that Councilmember Batchor introduced the resolution, and I'll do that again. 2020,
That's handy. I don't have to write it in. Wow.
No, you don't have to write it in. That's good. Collectible in 2021 and ordering the levy to be certified by the Sibley County Auditor.
I'll second.
Yeah, total of $959,613.
Who seconded that, please?
That was Rick.
Rick.
Okay. Okay, resolution 69-2020, introduced by Councilman Batcher again, and seconded by Councilmember Omrine. And this is a resolution adopting the 2020 tax levy collectible in 2021 and ordering the levy to be certified with the Sibley County Auditor. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
And Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 70-2020, a resolution adopting the 2021 municipal budget.
Hopefully you had a chance to take a look at this before tonight's meeting. I'm going to skip to the bottom. I'm going to say thank you to Denise for helping plug in these numbers for this resolution. But she put this together for me and I double checked the numbers. I'm trying to get all the way to the bottom. That shows our general fund, which has to be at 0. Special revenues. The enterprise funds, that's something I would like to work on next year because I do see a deficit always in the enterprise funds. The debt service, we're working on paying off some of that, and I noticed that looking at past years, those were over levied a bit, so that's why we have a deficit for the debt service funds. And overall, we have a surplus of $591. So we're sitting at a $6.3 million budget for 2021. Just for comparison, last for 2020, you had a 6.08. Was your budget 6.08 million? Questions? And remember the general fund and your debt service, those are the levied ones.
Would someone wish to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce resolution number 70-2020, adopting the 2021 Arlington municipal budget.
I'll second.
Was that Sharpie seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Resolution 70-2020, introduced by Councilmember Omrine, second by Councilmember Sharpie. And that is a resolution adopting the 2021 Arlington municipal budget. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
And Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
With 5 votes in favor, none opposed, the municipal budget resolution has been approved. Resolution 71-2020. That is a resolution approving the sign loan to David Hartman, doing business at Who's on First, for a sign in his business located at 401 West Main Street.
This was approved earlier this month at the EDA level. This is one of the EDA programs, is a sign program. It says loan, but it's a forgivable loan. If he stays in business for 3 years, his loan is forgiven, and we pay for half the cost of that new sign. David Hartman is opening a sports memorabilia shop in what used to be Reed's Floral.
I'll introduce Resolution 71, 2020, resolution approving a sign loan to David Hartman, doing business as Who's on First, for a sign at his business located at 401 West Main Street.
I'll second.
Who was that, please?
That was Rick.
Thank you. Resolution 71-2020, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Omrine. The resolution is approving a sign loan to David Hartman, doing business as Who's on First, for a sign at his business located at 401st West Main Street. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
With 5 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. Resolution 72-2020, a resolution ordering the filing of assessments. These were the assessments referred to in the hearing earlier this evening.
Correct. Give me a second to get to that one. This is the public hearing we held this evening, and as I said during the public hearing, these are properties that have been vacant, and we have been doing some lawn maintenance there, and they have not paid their utilities for 2020. So this is going to go on the taxes. So if it goes into tax forfeiture, whoever purchases that land will be paying, will have to pay these assessments on there, which is our costs.
You know, I'm really happy to see that it's only three property owners. I mean, that's really good to see. So everybody must be taking care of business.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. I'll introduce resolution 72-2020, resolution ordering the filing of assessments.
Second.
Resolution 72-2020, introduced by Councilmember Batchor, second by Councilmember Morgan, and it is a resolution ordering the filing of assessments. Further discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Batchor.
Yes.
Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, none opposed. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 73-2020, a resolution transferring city funds.
I think this is the longest resolution ever transferring money that I could find. Lisa and I went back and forth for quite a while working on this last week to get this all taken care of. So I'm going to go over the different transfers. The first section where it's from the general fund, the $313,000, that was the budgeted amount for 2020 to be transferred into the various funds. And then last time we had talked that we need to transfer that money for the whack and sack waivers. So that's the total dollar amount to cover those whack and sack waivers, putting it into the appropriate funds, the appropriate enterprise funds. And then we have some CARES and COVID related expenses that we need to transfer money from the general fund to the various entities for COVID-19 related expenses. And this is to follow along with our CARES money. We need to keep track of it in the appropriate accounts. From the general fund, to close out the 2009 GEO bond, we paid that off, so that fund is in the hole, so we have to put it into we have to take it from the general fund to close out that 2009, that Fund 314. And just to make note, we passed this once before, but any further assessments that come in, we're going to go towards 2012 to pay off the 2012 bond. 15,000, we need to transfer an additional 15,000 from the general fund to the community center fund due to a shortage due to COVID-19. The medical center fund, this is something that's budgeted each year, the money that's transferred from the medical center lease revenue into the appropriate accounts. The ambulance from the capital improvement fund into that ambulance certificate to pay for our portion of the 2015 ambulance certificate. And then these all are going to be closing out, you'll see, from the 2017 construction fund. We are closing that out and putting it into the GeoBond fund. So we're closing out one fund and it's going into that debt service fund. And that's what's happening with the 2017. The 2014 fire truck is going into the 2021. And the 2019 construction fund is done. So now that needs to go into the debt service fund, which is 321. The community center is paid off. So that money needs to go from that bond fund into the community center fund. It's only $1,400. And the capital improvement fund, we are paying from the 401 capital improvement fund into the general fund to pay for the street sweeper. That was apparently a resolution passed in 2015 with a 7-year payback. So that is everything that needs to be transferred to close out the end of the year. Any questions?
I'll introduce Resolution 73, 2020, a resolution transferring city funds.
I'll second.
Who had the second, please?
That was Rick.
Resolution 73-2020, introduced by Councilmember Batcher, second by Councilmember Omrine. And it is a resolution to transferring city funds. Further discussion? Hearing none, vote by roll call. Councilmember Sharpie,
Yes.
Councilmember Batcher,
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan,
Yes.
Councilmember Gilman,
Yes.
and Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
With 5 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. And lastly, Resolution 74-2020, a resolution establishing the 2021 schedule of fees and charges.
I'm going to go over the changes that were made. Under planning and zoning, this was brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they had a recommendation of a 5% increase. And I was completely fine with that. So that's where they recommended a 5% increase because we need to get a little closer to covering our expenses with the cost we have with the building inspector and staff time. Economic development was separated out because it was always under planning and zoning, and TIF and tax abatement are not planning and zoning, they're economic development. So we added that section and included the special meeting request because that can also happen under economic development. The next one was the cemetery fees. It was the recommendation of the cemetery committee to make the cost of burial plots $400 for residents of Arlington and $600 for non-residents. They had done a lot of research on what other cities are charging, and this is the number that the committee came up with. But there's a conflict in here. We realized when going through this again today and preparing for tonight's council meeting. the cemetery lots or plots south of 3 are the same thing as this $400 resident and $600 non-resident. So something needs to come out. And there's a few plots north of that road 3 that they're only asking $200 for. It would be simpler if you're gonna go with a cemetery committee's recommendation to take those designations about whether they're north or south of Road 3 and just make all burial plots the $400 for a resident of Arlington and $600 for non-resident. But we have to do something with that. We can't have the lots south and the burial plots, which are basically the same thing, having 2 different dollar amounts.
I say we.
So you're looking for a change?
I'm looking for
in
your
that
recommendation. Do you want to change it to their $400 for residents of Arlington and $600 for non-residents? Or do you want to leave this north and south of road number 3?
I would strike the north and south and just do it straight up
That's-
400 under.
If
I
my
agree with you,
assumption-
Michelle. That's what
yeah,
it
my assumption
simplifies it.
from the committee that night was that they just wanted to double up our existing fees of 200 and
Okay.
300 for resident and non. So I would say that that was just an oversight on those road numbers. Cross those
That's what
out,
I'm going to do then.
go with the flat 4.6.
Thank you. And then we had some changes to the ambulance. Jamie took a look at that and she had some recommendations for changing some of those ambulance costs. The ALS 1 emergency was up to $1,800. I updated the rates for Township and Green Isle. And I'm trying to find my notes on what Jamie had changed. Found them. BLS non-emergency. BLS non-emergency went up to $900 from $800, and the ALS 1 went up to $1,800 from $1,700. And we also added the prepaid service for non-emergent BLS transport at $500 plus mileage. And up to the fire department, Chief John Zaski had a couple changes on the fire department fees. And they were for let me take a look here. Jaws of Life went from $150 to $200. And we had to remove the pool fills for a 2,000-gallon tanker truck because we sold that tanker truck. So that's not an option anymore. And we just added the language under the false alarm that the officer in charge gets to decide.
I seen the cost per mile, mileage rate in the ambulance. Is that's not what standard mileage is. I'm just curious that, oh, I thought it was cents. So that's $23 a mile. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that did not change. That's the way we had it, was $23 a mile. No, yeah, they pay more than like standard IRS rates for mileage in the ambulance. That did not change. And Jamie did look at other towns to see what they charged for mileage and found us to be in the ballpark.
So the new water tanker, are we just not wanting to do that service anymore, or?
We still have the 3,000-gallon one listed, Joe, which is what we have now. See, it says pool fills, 3,500-gallon tanker. We don't have the 2,000-gallon truck anymore. And that was it. That was it for changes.
I'll introduce resolutions number 74, 2020, establishing the 2021 fee schedule and charges for services, licenses, and permits in the city of Arlington.
Second.
Resolution 74-2020, introduced by Councilmember Ombrine, second by Councilmember Batcher. And that is a resolution establishing the 2021 schedule of fees and charges for the various services, licenses, and permits. Any further discussion? Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call. Councilmember Gilman.
Yes.
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes.
Councilmember Batcher.
Yes.
Councilmember Omrine.
Yes.
Councilmember Sharpie.
Yes.
With 5 votes in favor, none opposed, the resolution is adopted. We're not listing any unfinished business at this time. We move to item 21, discussion on allowing one non-resident, and this should be on citizen committees, not city committees, citizen committees. So these are for the residents at large that indicate an interest in being on a committee. When we get back to this area where over the past few weeks, I've run into a few instances where someone is interested in being on a committee, but they do not live in Arlington. And I'm not saying they live in a different town somewhere. I'm just saying they live in a rural area. If we go back to the last sentence in the chapter 4 of the zoning that we talked about earlier, and this one reads, it now reads, commissioners shall be residents of the city of Arlington, except that one commissioner may reside in an existing approved Arlington City, Arlington Township orderly annexation area. And that has been filled over the past few years since the, or I should say over the past few years, by Darnell Halverson, who lives in the building in the Burner Edition north of town, not in the city limits, but in what was the orderly annexation agreement. Currently, we do not have an orderly annexation agreement. It is expired and not been renewed. We're working, City Administrator Newsom is working very hard at trying to get annexation area again defined, an agreement with the township put together. But currently, there is no orderly annexation agreement, which makes this part of the membership explanation really meaningless. And now that we have a vacancy in it, I guess I had the idea with I'm not going to say who the person is, but there is a person that owns a business in Arlington, would love to be on one of the committees, expressed interest in planning and zoning, but they can't be because of the fact they're not a City of Arlington resident. And I'm wondering if we can, in the near future, take out the sentence that talks about the one member that is in the orderly annexation area, which is sort of meaningless at this point, and replace it with something that might read, commissioners shall be residents of the city of Arlington, except that one commissioner may reside outside the city limits if he or she is owner in part or whole of a business located within the Arlington city limits. So that would allow, in this particular instance, planning and zoning, allow one member who owns a business or has part ownership in a business that just happens to live out in the rural area near Arlington, a chance to be on a board. They would definitely be in the vast minority, so there is no issue with them, being able to control things from their power as one vote, one person, one vote. But I'm just wondering how the council feels about that. If we need to go, if we want to do something like that, or if we don't want to go down that road. It would tend to make finding committee members a little easier, I think.
Amy,
Open for discussion.
Amy, in the orderly annexation area that in place, how far out from the city of Arlington limits typically does it go out? It has gone out to. I mean, I know we're trying to square it up. It's not a perfect, but I think the annexation kind of perimeter around the proper limits, right?
It was squared up a few miles outside of the past one. The one that expired 2 years ago was squared up a few miles, you are correct, outside of city limits. But if we move forward with a possible different annexation for that business that was looking at coming on the southwest side of town, it would change the way the orderly annexation looked, and that's quite a few miles. That's like 120 acres southwest of town. So
I guess for me, I would be open to, you know, looking like the radius, right? So many out from what would be in our orderly annexation or orderly annexation. Something that we knew that the townships were probably, if they would agree to, and keep that perimeter rather than just going, you know, way outside of that, even though a business owner has a business in town. I'd still like to keep it kind of within the parameter of, I don't know, whatever the orderly annexation, what we're working on would look like.
would end up.
Yeah, would kind of keep them in that area. And honestly, in that case, I mean, whether or not they're a business owner really wouldn't play a big role for me. It would just expand that area into what the orderly annexation is.
I think I'm kind of struggling with this one. You know, in a way, when you keep it to Arlington residents, you know, their skin is in the game. Their tax dollars are in it. They're part of the community. So when you open it up outside of that, you know, I think it can just be viewed upon as, you know, if I got a business in town and I live outside of town and now I'm on the planning and zoning or something, you know, here I am trying to do something that's going to benefit me, but yet I don't have the repercussions of tax, you know, levy increases.
Just to play devil's advocate, Joe, I'm not arguing one way or another for this, but if you own a business in town, you own that commercial property. If you own that commercial land, you'd be paying taxes and contributing to our levy.
On that property, yes, but you know.
But if you rent the building, then you're correct. Then they wouldn't be paying property taxes.
Right, but they'd be paying property taxes for it one way or another, either
through their rent.
Yeah, I'm just processing this at the moment, and you know, my initial feeling is, you know, I understand the difficulty to get members to join the different committees, but when you're not solely a part of the community, you know, it'd be like sports. You know, you got a good baseball player in another town, you go sneak that person in, and now all of a sudden you've got a really good team. You know, is that fair? Just some thought. I don't know.
I'd like to say, if
somebody lives just outside of Arlington rural, they're still considering Arlington part of their, I would assume they would anyways, at least I always have in the past. And if they have a business in town, they have a vested interest in the town to begin with. So I guess my opinion would be that, to bring the right people onto the committees, or if we need people to fill the committees, opening it up isn't the worst thing in the world.
I'll kind of echo that. Just from a matter of it's a person's choice where they want to spend their time, and if somebody wants to spend their time focusing on Arlington and the city of Arlington, whether it's on their committees or boards or owning their business here or coming in to shop or eat or buy a car or fill up their tank of gas on their way through from a rural area, they're choosing Arlington over any of the other cities in order to participate in those. So I don't see a big issue of opening it up outside of city limits or those considered Arlington residents.
Laura, you're the only one we haven't heard from yet. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was the one that had originally suggested that we conflate some of these citizen committees as well because of this difficulty of finding people to serve on these committees. I do see the logic in allowing people who live just a small distance outside of town and who work here, shop here, own a business here. I agree that those folks should be given an opportunity to serve on committees. If you're getting further outside of the annex area, I would hesitate to agree to that.
Well, it's good to hear from everyone. We do have 2 new council members coming on in January, and I guess this is certainly something that we can bring up again for discussion and see what the council at that time, if they want to move ahead with any changes or not. So I just wanted to bring it out as a starting point for discussion, and I appreciate the comments.
Mr. Mayor, this is Ross.
Yes.
And just wanted to throw in that City of Green Isle actually had an identical discussion a few years ago regarding their EDA, and they did change their committee rules to allow one member who owned real estate business in Green Isle, but who lived outside of Green Isle to serve on the EDA. So that's how they address the same issue. And it seems to be working pretty well. One thing they didn't look at or discuss was, whether there should be a geographical radius or limit on that. And I suppose maybe in their context, they didn't feel there was anybody who lived, 20 miles away who owned a business in Green Isle. So I just don't think it came up on their radar. But in the context of Arlington, it's certainly something to consider, whether we wanted to put a radius on the, the actual residence location outside of city limits. So just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, mixed feelings at this point. So I think if it's okay with the council, we'll just bring it up again once the new council's in place and try and reach a consensus as to whether to move forward with some type of a change or not. Or if we don't, it will be a dead issue at that point. Is there any committee updates? I'm guessing there probably isn't, but I'll open it up for that.
We forgot the ambulance bill, Rich.
Oh. You're right. Okay, my fault, I'm sorry. We jumped over it. All right, item 22, approve or deny the payment of the Gaylord ambulance amount. Go ahead, Amy.
Lisa had a chance to go through this, and she went through it with me last week as well. And she found some errors in the document sent to us from the city of Gaylord. We did, after going through it and finding the changes, we did reach out to Gaylord on Friday, but we never heard back from them regarding the changes we found. We wanted to just let them know the changes we'd made before we put it on the council agenda, but we did not hear back from them. So remember, everything was split 50-50, and there were no firm documents on how this test merger period was going to be handled, other than it was going to be split 50-50. So the total expenses Gaylord paid, they're saying, was $899,000, and that's with Lisa going through and correcting some errors she found. So each would owe $99,609.66. Arlington did pay some expenses, which were not listed in that initial one, of $8,867.51. So if you split those two in half, the net that we owe for expenses ended up being $95,175. And then on the revenue side, that's also split 50-50. And Gaylord only gave us their revenue information through September. So that was $84,000. So Gaylord owes to Arlington $42,286.49. And then Arlington's revenue, so to date that we had, was $119,818.37. And it says through November, because it takes a while to get the billing from Expertise to get that revenue in on the ambulance billing. Another thing we took out from the initial information we received from Gaylord that Lisa and I agreed on, and they were billing us for half of the write-offs. And write-offs, that's the money we don't collect. So Lisa and I did not agree that we should give them half of the write-offs in this. We just took that out of the equation. So the total that Lisa came up with after going through this all very fine-tooth comb was that we actually owed them $112,798.60 if we split everything 50-50. There may be more to come because all of the Expertise revenue has not come back yet. So there may be additional bills coming in 2021, but we wanted to get the bulk of this taken care of in 2020 and off our books. Questions? Anybody have questions?
What was the old, what we owed?
You know, I forgot to grab that and bring it with. It was 140-some thousand, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it was 143,000.
That's what I remember too. I was gonna grab that number, and that's the number I forgot to grab. I think it was 143. I think Joe.
Yeah.
I agree.
was just gonna thank you guys for deep diving into that. You know, that's a pretty big difference. So
It is a pretty big difference. The write-offs were a large amount. It was like 21,000, and like Lisa and I agreed, no, that's money that's written off anyway. We're not paying half of that.
Yeah, that shouldn't come into the equation at all. Was that right?
Correct.
Amy, you said that there was going to be more revenue coming in that might have to be split up or whatever.
That would have to be split.
Is Gaylord going to be doing the same thing?
Yes.
Assume?
Yes, they should be.
So we know that there is a likelihood that there could be additional numbers to deal with here after, you know, we hear back from Gaylord.
But this should be the bulk of it.
This should be the bulk of it. I would entertain a motion to pay this amount and take care of this now.
I would introduce a resolution to pay the $112,798.60 to Gaylord to close out the test merger.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Morgan, second by Councilmember Gilman to authorize payment of $112,798.60 to the city of Gaylord for ambulance test merger period. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now we'll move down to miscellaneous. My apologies for moving there too quickly before and skipping over the item 22. Are there any committee updates?
I would have
Hearing
one.
none, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I'd have one final one on the Cable Commission last meeting that I went to. If anybody wants to hear it, it was quite an interesting meeting. There is talk, Winthrop, I'm not entirely sure what all happened last month, but now Winthrop may talk about leaving. The whole business with me, I really feel after with the time that I've spent on the Cable Commission that Wade is the only thing holding this thing together. They are, I guess we shook some things up in what we've done because they've gone back to their bylaws and realized that they should be doing certain things that they weren't doing. So I guess we could take that as in, one thing. The other thing is that not moving as fast as they thought they were going to. MediaCom is not authorized the HD channels yet, so they don't even know if they'll even get MediaCom to do the HD channels or just keep them standard definition. RS Fiber is all on board with it. They're ready to get going with HD. So right now, things are in limbo until MediaCom gives them the go-ahead for HD channels. Otherwise, I don't know what they're going to do after that. But I just kind of wanted to give you the last kind of update on what's been going on. And like I said, right now it's kind of, I don't know what's going on with that thing. It's just weird the way things was last meeting.
I think it's a sign of we're probably doing the right thing. Like you said, Wade's the only one holding it together. It seems to be somewhat of a dying medium. I like the fact that Arlington's going to have it in their own revenue stream. Those franchise fees coming directly into the city versus some commission that's collecting a stipend but not offering results. And I think in time, if the city or the school decides to take it on to get some channel on public access for the city of Arlington, it'll possibly be a better overall product, because I think we've learned from this experience that we'll have our ducks in a row to put something out there in reference to public access channels.
Any other comments or committee updates?
I don't have a committee update, but I have questions or see where everybody's standing or feeling. For me, I would really like to be inside that community center for our meetings. I know last spring what we did is open up, instead of being in the chamber, we were in the hall to make sure that we had plenty of space in between us all. And if anybody was decided to come to the building, there'd be plenty of space to be in the same room as us as well. And I'm just looking to see what others feel about that. Because I know for me, I would appreciate that. I know the schools having their meetings in the building, but they also took a little piece of what we're doing, and they're doing streaming or Meet or a Zoom along with their meetings now as well. So
I
I
appreciate
would
those
agree.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree too. I would rather be in person. It's a lot easier to work together than trying to do it over this. I really don't like this at all.
City Administrator Newsom, what is the state saying as far as what's allowable for us to conduct meetings?
As a government meeting, I believe that we can meet in person again. I'm not sure if we can allow the public to come in, but the city council members, from what I understand, can meet in person. I would recommend meeting in this room because it was hard to hear in the big rooms when we do have people joining in by RingCentral. We'll still have to offer RingCentral to the public so that they can participate in the meeting as well. But I would suggest meeting in this room because otherwise it's hard for the people on RingCentral to hear. Remember, we had that difficulty.
as far as
For a number of meetings, we had persons that were interested in speaking. We had them waiting out in the hallway, and that until their time on the agenda came up, and it seemed like that worked pretty good, actually.
Yeah, that did work pretty well to have people in the hall.
And I do like.
Well, how about if we go ahead, Michelle?
I said I do like RingCentral, and I think it's something that if anything good came out of this pandemic, that's one of the things to make it more transparent, more open, more accessible for our citizens to join. And I know I don't see really anybody from the public, but you know they could. They could. Probably would do that versus getting in their vehicle and driving, you know, if something came up. So I do like this. I think that we should continue this even after this whole pandemic's behind us. So that's.
Well, why don't we shoot for having our meetings back in the council chambers again, beginning with the first meeting in January, and go on those terms unless something changes from the state.
Correct.
We do have two members tonight that it's their last meeting, and I personally want to thank Rick Amrine and Laura Gilman for the time that they've spent in service to the city. I've enjoyed working with two of you very much, and we'll miss you. I also look forward to working with the newly elected persons. So, but thank you very much for what you've done and the perspective that you've brought to the council.
Yes, thank you, Rick and Laura. I will miss both of you on city council.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to serve.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I will miss these a lot. I enjoyed this a lot. It was a great experience, and I'm looking forward to the future of the city of Arlington because I think that there's some stalwarts on this council that's going to have it in the right direction, along with our city administrator and city staff. So best of luck to everybody in 2021, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays as well to all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rick.
Mr. Amrine, would you care to make the motion to adjourn the meeting?
I will make that motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
And Ms. Gilman, would you want to second it?
I'll second.
All right. On a motion by Councilmember Amrine, second by Councilmember Gilman to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion is carried. The meeting is adjourned at 8:09.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.